Now see, all of these people, see here like Lordsons are, the daughter, she lives in, Bob and Dorothy are gone and Bill is gone, the son. But Janet lives in Johnstown. And then the horse, I think the horses are all gone. They started that Gardner Denver that's over there on 76 and about 96th Avenue. I don't know, did they make tools, Jen? Is that what Gardner Denver was?
I think so. I
Yeah.
would say for sure.
And,
Karen, Clarence's daughter, she lives in Seattle.
Oh, yeah, there's a lot of these people. See this Foster's and Cook here on 128? That's where my grandma lived. And so Lordson's lived on the corner. Then across the field was my grandma Luker, and then the Fosters and the Cooks were one family. That was a mother and daughter, and the daughter Foster married a Cook. There's Ginther still around, and then this Fred Foster, see, was my uncle as well. I don't think there's any Rankins around anymore, but there's Ginthers around. I don't think there's any Dirks, but now my sister-in-law, this Art Eppinger, that's my sister-in-law. But I couldn't get her out of her house. But there's a lot of, and this was the one I was talking to you about, was the Hink houses.
Mm-hmm.
Have you talked to Glenn Lambertson? You know,
I haven't had the best luck getting hold of him.
Glenn.
No, I have talked with Glenn because he owns the property still south of, on East Lake Ave there, with
That's
with
kind
that
of
big
north.
fence.
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah, he's still
He's
does.
chatted to us.
But see, his brother, we called him Bus, I guess that was
Leroy.
That was, oh no, what was the one,
Dwayne.
What was Dwayne's dad's name?
Kelly.
Kelly. But they called him Bus, right?
I was called him Dwayne.
Oh, you called him, I never knew what his name, we always just called him whatever. But Hink houses, they own the dairy, and that's the Sways, and the Sways came here in 1952, but they lived over on 128th and Huron.
When you say the Hink House owned the dairy, are you referring to the old dairy plant that the infrastructure building is now in?
Yes.
Yes.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
That's Karen. Karen had, there was Karen and Sharon and Pam and what's the one that lives in Nebraska that was married to Eddie Derland? Deanna. There was 4 girls, but they ran the dairy. I wonder how long was Eddie Derland? Of course, Eddie's not in good health, so you're probably not going to get much out of him.
Oh, I think he worked there most of his married life.
Well, yeah. And they used to live on the corner of 128th and Holly after 120th and Holly after Gurley's built that big house up there in the field. Yeah. Now, have you talked to the Stonehawkers?
I didn't know anybody with a connection to them.
Oh.
And then Glenda, my former boss, who knew a lot of the folks, she's since
she departed.
Retired.
She
won't use
departed.
that word though. She
Yes. Rose lives up on Holly. She lives across, where are we at here? This is 128. This is Highway 7 up here. She lives at Highway 7 in Holly.
Sorry, what was the last name?
Stonehocker. So,
yeah, we don't. She didn't fill in that name on here.
You know that.
It's not that close to Highway 7 at least.
You know the. Let's see here. She would live
off
Colorado
the map.
Boulevard. This is Holly. So she would live like right here.
Okay.
Okay. And her son Mike lives across the street from her. And then Bill, he was a vet. They had the Northern Veterinary Clinic, and it's now up on 120. What is that? 124th and Washington. But he's in Firestone. But we just signed it for his funeral, so we can get a hold of him.
Yeah, I mean, I would take any connection, especially as we're getting into the, which you'll get an email shortly about this, but we're getting into the kind of final parts of the plan, and our 2 kind of early recommendations for survey are going to be focused on updating the East Lake survey and then updating our agricultural landscape knowledge. And so yeah, talking to some
Oh,
of
there's
these families would be
here's
extremely
Stone.
helpful.
Here's Stonehawker.
That's on the third page. Okay.
Yeah.
So it's a little more south.
That
then.
was, that was the other brother. That was Walt and Marie, oh, that's
Okay.
Earl and Marie. That's Rose and Walt. Where did they live before they moved up on the hill?
Well, it's now a
Did they
museum.
live? Huh?
It's
Where
right
the
behind
museum?
the Carpenter Center.
Yeah, that's
They're
where
on
they lived?
112, yeah.
Oh, okay. So they lived, okay, so they
But
lived
now
there.
it's historical.
Russ Ritchie, yes, he did own but his family's all gone.
Hmm.
That used to be, there used to be a gas station, and the reason it's called Orchard Corner is because there was an apple orchard out behind.
Hmm.
But there was a gas station and a restaurant. So we, and,
I assume the buildings are gone.
oh,
Yeah.
yeah, the big ditch run over there.
And my uncle, by marriage, had a auto store in Eastlake.
Oh, what store?
Auto store?
Garage, uh-huh.
Oh, is that right?
Lewis.
Do you know where it was at in Eastlake?
It was right down the street from the beer joint.
The bar, and then, was it the garage next door then?
Uh-huh.
Yeah. It's,
On the same side of the street.
uh-huh,
Oh, okay.
yeah.
But it's not there anymore, so.
Yeah, that's the unfortunate part that we're learning with this. Is so much has
Now, Gurley,
just disappeared.
Annie died, but Isabel's still alive. She lives up in Platteville.
I haven't seen him for
Yeah,
years.
Sophals, we just saw them, their boys are still alive. Mike? Mike.
Yeah.
We saw Mike at their, I think there's a Swanson still around here. Sharon Carlson is still around here also.
Yeah, we know there's some Carlsons. When I went into their office, unfortunately,
She's not a Carlson anymore.
No, she's not. No,
I don't know what her married name,
I don't either.
second marriage.
Oh, here's Walt right here in this picture. Yeah, or in this one.
well, maybe if you can think of who we should chat with. It seems like we've kind of been given a little bit of a green light to do this a little bit more. But we got to get permission, of course, as you know, everything has to go through bureaucracy.
Oh,
But
sure.
yeah, you can pass my contact along or
Okay.
however you want to do it. Like, I know that you're doing this all out of your own kindness, so.
Well, I know
what
that
to do.
I know I talked to Dean Sways this morning, and I told him that I would like for you to have his name. So if you'll give me, do you have cards?
Yeah.
Okay, if
Yeah.
you give me some cards, I'll,
What about the Holstroms?
yeah, Holstrom's, because they're, of course, they're a little further over, but they're more Adams County. They were Broomfield, but they still did a lot in the area.
There's a school named after him.
Yeah, Holstrom Elementary in Northland, yeah.
Well, we did come here to talk about you, Jen.
Yeah.
We do have some questions to help you out, but again, tangents going off on the side notes here is more than fine. I must have left them in my car, so
It's okay.
I know that's gonna fall everywhere, so we'll just do that for now. So yeah, if we'll just kind of jump in, I'll do a time check after we hit about an hour. Make sure we're still good. See if we need to do anything. If you need to take a break or anything, we can point you towards the bathrooms and such as well. So,
Okay.
but yeah, thanks for doing this again. Really appreciate it. We can just start off easy if you don't mind, and just what's the relationship to the Reichenstein family, and as we've kind of learned, there's also the Green name, so kind of explain that to us a bit if you don't mind. And
Well, I was a Green and I married a Reitzenstein.
okay,
And they're from Oregon.
they're from where?
Oregon.
Oregon. Okay. Your family or the Reichenstein?
Reitzenstein.
Okay.
There used to be an aunt in Brighton, but she's passed. But there's no other relatives here.
So your family then also lives here, because we see on this map here, Green is also there. So it was not that you were just with the Reichenstein family, you were also with the Green family then.
Yes.
Okay. And from Oregon, so what does that mean?
Pardon me?
When you say from Oregon, like that's where they immigrated from? I imagine that.
Well, the Reitzenstein, Pete, the dad, he grew up around here.
Okay.
He knew Mrs. Blatzer.
Oh, Daisy Blitzer? Oh, is that right? Oh, I'll be darned.
And they lived in Salem the rest of the time.
Oh, I lived there for a couple of years actually. That was kind of fun. Okay, so then they moved here in hopes of, do you know?
I don't know why they came here. I really don't. I just knew because they came to visit once and I took him to see Daisy.
So why did your family move here?
Well, my granddad came from Germany
Okay.
and he was 17 when he came. And he stayed with the John Ehlers there on Highway 7 in Brighton. And then his brother-in-law, Carl Tim, helped him buy the farm there on York Street. And that's where mother was born and all her siblings. But unfortunately, he passed away, so I never did know him.
Mm-hmm.
Is that all that's left at the original family farm is the barn?
Mm-hmm.
And just since we're kind of getting the farms green and the Reitenstein, when you say what's left of you mean the Reitenstein barn or from your family's barns? And
The Ehler
properties?
place.
The Ehler, okay. Off of York.
Uh-huh.
Have you seen the barn?
I'm still learning there's more here than I thought. So,
Well, my granddad built that, so when I sold the property, I inherited it when my mother passed away. And when I sold it to Thornton, I told them that they could not tear the barn down. They had to keep it. And that was part
I
of the-
just want to make sure I'm talking like the white Reitenstein barn next to the ditch. Or are you referring to something else? Because
Well, that's the Ehler place.
that's the
that
so
was
are you
my
calling it the
mother's.
wrong name? Should
Yeah,
it be?
Reitzenstein, well, I inherited the land
Mm-hmm.
when my mother passed away, but the Reitzenstein had nothing to do with the Easter. That was all Easter, Ehler place, mother's side.
And can you spell Ehler for me?
E-H-L-E-R.
E-H-L-E-R. Thank you. Okay. Because I've heard that when we've talked to people. They said it shouldn't be the Reitenstein barn. And they would say green, but
Really
no,
should be the Ehler.
the Ehler barn. Okay. And so is that the family then that worked the farm and ran it? Then.
Well, that's where my mother grew up.
Mhm.
She and all the children were raised there, born and raised there.
And so is it because that you were married into the Reitenstein family that name kind of overtook it, or how did that change happen?
Didn't change anything.
Yeah, I guess I'm just trying to figure out how we've been calling it the Reitenstein barn for so long.
Well, only because I inherited it, but I had nothing to do with it.
Gotcha.
Most of us that know Jan don't call her Jan Reitzenstein. We
Sure.
always call her Jan Green.
A lot easier.
Yeah, no kidding. Took me forever to learn how to spell it.
So then would you say your familiarity with the operations of the farm and such is pretty low then, or what do you kind of remember?
Well, my dad farmed it,
Okay.
and I remember him planting corn and wheat and raised some cattle there.
Do you remember how much land it was?
I think it was 160 acres.
Oh, okay, well, it's not quite that anymore.
No, because they sold off part of it
Yeah.
earlier.
Interesting. Was it mostly just dryland crops or?
No, they had irrigation water.
Right, because we're finding that ditch might have been one of the first in Colorado. The ditch that's right adjacent to the barn.
The Big Dry Creek?
Mm-hmm. It may have been
really?
one of the first.
Really?
It could be the oldest still in the state.
No, they got water out of that to irrigate.
And yeah, because it's, so then it would have been just dryland crops. It could have been all sorts. So did they just change with the markets, or how did they decide what they were going to plant, or were you
Whatever
kind of-
farmers planted back then.
Yeah, that's just kind of what everybody was doing.
Yeah,
Whatever they thought would grow.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, right.
During the Dust Bowl, not much grew.
no.
Right. Well, interesting. So as far as the farm goes, there was wheat, there was cattle, there was any other alfalfa, corn, but didn't get into sugar beets or anything like that.
I don't think they ever planted sugar beets there.
No.
They did on the home place. There were
Okay.
49.
Okay.
49, Daddy raised beets.
So your family had property kind of all over then, a little bit.
Well, my mother lived in 2 houses her entire life. When she got married, they lived there on York Street, and then where my dad lived, a mile east
On Colorado Boulevard.
on
Okay.
Colorado Boulevard.
Interesting. And so, like, I assume, kind of, as the farm was changing with, the changing demographics of the area, changing development patterns and all that, I imagine that the farm was pretty impacted by that. So, kind of, when did you notice the changes as like the droughts were occurring and as people were developing more of the land into housing? Did you start to notice any sort of pressure to change, or did things just
There
kind
was a
of?
lot of construction around, and
Yeah.
my brother kind of forced my dad to sell.
So you didn't want to sell?
I didn't want him to sell,
You didn't want to sell.
but then my dad passed away of a heart attack, so he couldn't handle it. At that time, Carlson's bought the land.
So it was sold to the Carlsons first. Okay. And then they in turn sold it back to you and then the city, or?
I don't know what they did with it.
Okay.
Probably got foreclosed on.
Probably.
Oh, this is your family's properties. Yeah. Sorry. Okay.
Because originally they said they were going to build a baseball.
Yeah, but they ended up building that over on York Street, right?
Yeah.
Well, I don't know, the baseball team did that, was it the Rockies did that? It had something to do with the baseball, and that's over on York Street. So I don't know, but that deal must have fell through with the Carlsons.
Yeah, and Sam Dunham used to farm it a couple of years ago, but I don't know if anybody's farming it or if it just sits there.
Yeah, there's not much there. Weeds,
Yeah.
Just weeds.
So then, as the construction was occurring and the pressures to sell occurred, I mean, did everybody around you kind of also start to feel the same pressure and just start selling, and that's kind of what tipped it, or was there some bad years? Well, I know that you said that you had pressure from your brother, but kind of before all that happened, was there pressure to sell, or was it kind of you just imagined the farm would always be there?
I don't remember anybody pressuring him to sell.
Okay. So it's kind of just, you always imagined the farm would be there, and just times just kind of changed.
Well, my dad had a big dairy, and he sold the dairy. And then it kind of went downhill from there.
And that would be the dairy plant that we were talking about at the start, that the city now has the infrastructure maintenance center in, or a different dairy plant.
they had a dairy at their house.
Yeah.
Okay,
On
sorry.
York Street, yeah.
It's a relatively new revelation to me about the dairy plant in the old. In the old, what is now the infrastructure maintenance center. So I'm just trying to
But
find
that
the
used to
connections
be,
that a little bit.
the original dairy was Colorado Milk Transport was called. It's down there at, like you just, north of E470 on Washington Street.
Okay.
That was called,
Probably.
what was Colorado Milk Transport, because
Yeah.
my uncle drove a milk truck.
'Cause we used
And then
to-
they moved it up to MEDO, Mountain Empire Dairymen's Association, bought it out, and they were in that infrastructure building. And then they sold that one and moved everything, the milk companies up in Greeley.
Okay. So then the company would have been absorbed into that company. So if there's any sort of historical record, that may be a good place to look. Or
I don't know.
You could, because they're a member at where I work, we could probably see if there's anything, but probably nothing.
yeah.
Nothing
I
much
doubt it.
left, yeah.
Yeah.
People throw things away,
I'm learning.
not me.
Well, what do you kind of remember about life before Thornton? It's how far back do you kind of feel you have some pretty solid ideas of what that was? Because we know a lot about the 1950s. We've had plenty of people tell us about kind of Thornton growing up, but we don't have a lot of information about anything before that, really.
Well, all I know is that we had to work on the farm in the summertime.
You yourself, so what did you have to do?
Well, we used to stack hay,
Mm-hmm.
and my dad would stack the hay, and my brother would bring it in. And they used horses to pull up the stacker, so I had to drive the horses.
How old were you doing this?
Oh, I must have been 12, maybe.
Oh, yeah, people would probably yell at parents if they did that now.
Yeah.
And was that all through your adolescence and stuff, or as you got older, did you start to do other things? How did you start to interact with the, like Eastlake and Thornton as you were growing up?
Well, we were active in 4-H, and we were active in the church, and
Which church?
Eastlake Congregational Church.
The one with the white
Church.
pillar. Yeah. And you're still operating, obviously. So.
Yep.
Are you still a member of that church?
Technically, yes.
But we don't go to church.
So maybe go to a different church. And when did the Catholic Church in Eastlake? Do you recall anything about that? Because now it's the Masonic Lodge.
But let's see, Jen, did it come in the 40s?
I can't remember when.
Jimmy and Evie were married in 1954, and they lived across the street from the Catholic Church. So, no, they were married in 58, so the Catholic Church was there. And then, it didn't used to, well, it's called St. Anne's something. You can find that, if you go into Eastlake, into the Catholic Church at Eastlake, and you might go to the Immaculate Heart of Mary, because that's why they built the Eastlake Church. Catholic Church got too small, so that's when they built the Immaculate Heart of Mary.
Okay.
And it's been around for a long time.
Okay.
So you might be able to find some historical records on it.
I have no idea when these closed.
That was the wrong church. It was there ever since I can remember.
Yeah, there were just 2 churches in the community.
Yeah. And so as you're kind of growing up and such, were there other things in Eastlake that, you said 4-H, church, were there other things that you use for community and kind of gathering?
Well, you square danced a lot.
Old grocery store, the Snidels had.
Yeah.
That's where we originally started with 4-H, with Good Luck.
At the grocery, you would. Okay.
It was on the corner, the barber shop is there now. There was,
Oh, that was the grocery.
Yeah.
Okay.
and across the street was the doctor's office, Dr. Elmore.
Where did you square dance at?
Pardon me?
Where did you square dance at?
In that.
In the grocery.
Uh-huh.
Was it on the second? Was there a second story? I feel like I'm saying
It's
this.
just all one
It's
No,
just
okay.
one floor.
So grocery by day, dance hall at night.
Well, they they closed the grocery store, and then, I don't know if Good Luck bought it or rented it.
No idea. Because Bathhouse had the grocery store in Eastlake, unless you wanted to go, well, you had to go clear to Brighton because there was no North Glen or Thornton,
Right.
Yeah, so I remember when we chatted, and a lot of other people kind of north of 120th, you went to Brighton for everything, or you went to Denver for everything,
Yeah.
because there was, like you said, no in between really.
Yeah.
Do you feel like 120th was kind of that dividing line, or what was it for you?
Well, basically we just went to Eastlake or Brighton.
Yeah, didn't go any, just that was it. So as you were kind of experiencing all of this, like, was there anything else that's kind of stood out, or was it, just kind of Eastlake, and in the background you saw, like, you heard about Thornton, but you weren't concerned with it too much at the time, or?
Well, we all graduated from 8th grade from Eastlake, and there was no high school.
Okay.
So one went to Boulder, One went to Lafayette,
Jim went to Adams City, and Evie went to Westminster.
Westminster, and Brighton. So it's kind of broke up.
Mhm.
Majority of us went to Brighton.
Yeah.
And how would you get to school?
School bus.
School by, yeah, okay. Yeah, because the train service never went that way, so it would have been quite, despite having trains there, it would have been pretty difficult, I imagine.
The only thing the train did was bring coal in from the Eagle Mine
Mm-hmm.
and take it downtown. In the summertime, they hauled grain downtown out of the elevator.
Mm-hmm.
So, but there was no way to, even when my mom was a kid, they took the horse and buggy to go down to Denver.
So despite having passenger service, nobody still used it?
There wasn't really that much.
Okay.
There was some, but not much.
Yeah, the old timetables, it was like, came like 3 times a day. Like, you're not really gonna get around with the train.
Well, in the early years, I remember Mother talking about the National Western,
Mm-hmm.
the rodeo.
Mm-hmm.
They would bring the animals there, and then they would leave them overnight at my granddad's place,
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
and then load them up the next morning and take them down to stock show or wherever they needed them.
And so there, yeah, because that's also what we have some information on for the Reichenstein barn, as we are calling it. I guess that was also used for similar purposes, it sounded like. And so that would have been like a one-time year when the shows are going on. It was a kind of big deal. So
I think so.
Yeah. And then were there other kind of connections to the larger area, like the stock show that you recall?
Well, as we got older, we used to go down to the stock show once a year to the rodeo.
did you have a car?
Daddy did, yeah.
Oh, okay.
How about as a young adult? So you said you were married into the Reichenstein family, but was there anything else kind of leading up into that moment, or is it just kind of, did you have
I worked for Blue Cross
Blue Cross? Okay.
for all those years.
Is that pretty much what you did for most of your career?
Well, until I moved back here, and then I went to work for the state, and I worked there 25 years.
Oh, what agency?
Department of Labor and Employment.
Oh, wow. Okay. Do you mind, what did you do?
I worked on the unemployment section.
Oh, wow. Okay.
That was not much of a job back then because everybody worked.
Sometimes it got pretty busy.
Yeah, I can imagine.
And where was that office at?
Denver.
Soon downtown, yeah.
12th and Sherman.
And so as as Thornton started to become more of a proper city, what were some things that you kind of noticed that changed, that kind of stick out in your memory?
The traffic.
It's always traffic. Always traffic. What about
Terrible.
it? Did it get better with the highway? No. Got worse.
Now they put a roundabout there on 128th, and that's
Yeah, that's a nightmare there.
Yeah.
Well, Jen, when did they finish? I remember that there was a guy named John Chevy that lived at I-25. They hadn't even started I-25. The last little bit of I-25 before it came was 58th Avenue. And then they finally began to build it up to 120th. And that's when they moved him out of there. Jim went over and helped him move him someplace else. He was an old man.
I don't know.
Huh.
Besides traffic, though, like what did people think about the growth and all of that was coming? Aside from traffic, because everybody hates traffic.
You know, everybody's upset about the growth.
Yeah.
It's too big.
So I'm just learning. Originally, if you look at the brochures, they had planned Thornton to 120th, and that never happened. Well, now obviously it's well beyond that, but at the time when it was first being constructed, that did not happen. Do you recall any reasons why, or? No, okay. Cause yeah, about half the homes that were planned actually got built. It was supposed to be 5,000 homes and only about 2,500 got built.
So was that what we call the original Thornton?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So there was 5,000, there was supposed to be 5,000 homes. That would have been quite a few homes. How many did they build in original Thornton? I don't know.
Half that, 2,500.
Oh, 2,500,
Yeah.
okay.
And so I'm imagining someone either didn't want to sell their land or
Oh, yeah, I
economic
imagine. Yeah.
conditions changed or something happened where he couldn't deliver on his promise anymore. But
Don't you think it was the farmers didn't want to sell?
Could have been.
No.
it wasn't something you were too concerned with, then I guess you weren't thinking about it that much. Yeah, you had other things going on. It sounds like so. Yeah, so like there wasn't anything other than traffic and just that it was growing big, too big, as you said. Wasn't anything else that kind of stuck out as it was kind of becoming a thing. Thornton, now it's here, it's a city all of a sudden that wasn't there. There was nothing else that kind of sticks out.
I think it's hard for all of us to give up what we had when we were growing up.
Mm-hmm. Just kind of the lifestyle and the community, and so everybody kind of wanted to just keep the agricultural, rural kind of community.
Right.
Do you think that's what we should do with the barn now?
Well, I don't know what they're going to do with it, but they can't tear it down.
Right. Well, that much is true.
I had a friend, Eddie, said, why don't you put a restaurant in there and then fix it up? They can have weddings, they can have graduation.
Oh, well, that'd
I
be
said,
good.
go right ahead.
Mm-hmm.
That would be an ideal place because there's nothing like that around here. But it would take a lot of money.
It would. Although the barn's in pretty decent shape.
It is.
For a building that old, and with a lot of exposure, you would think it would have taken some wear and tear, but it's in pretty decent shape.
Well, they painted it not too long ago, didn't they? Not too many years ago?
Well, after I sold it, they painted it.
That's what I thought.
So based on, our consultant who is unable to join us, but they really wanted us to get some information on farm operations and the ditch out of you, but based on what you've said, it sounds like maybe that wasn't at the forefront of your mind. I mean, a 12-year-old's not thinking about water ditches, right? So, especially when you're stacking hay, you probably didn't really care how it worked.
And then when they harvested, I'd have to sit in the truck. And when the bin was full, then I'd have to drive the truck up to the combine so they could empty the wheat into the truck.
And then take it up to the elevator.
Yeah.
Did you go to the elevator?
No,
Oh, you didn't take it up to the elevator?
they took it to Denver.
Oh, so see, Mom, when Shirley and Kenneth were up on 128th, Lenny had a piece, my mom had a piece, and then the Dirkses, and so Shirley and Kenneth would, that was all wheat, dryland wheat. So they would take the wheat, once they dumped it in the truck, they would take it to the East Lake elevator, and then it had a board on the side. Remember how the trucks had a board on the side? They just opened it up and then it dumped off into the hole in the ground, the grain did. And then they would pull it, they would auger it back up and put it in the train cars to go to Denver.
Well, we had the big storage tanks that they used to put.
Oh, did they put them in I see, in the silos?
In the upright.
Yeah.
Those metal ones.
Yeah.
And then
Well, there's some brick ones too. Is there still some brick ones around here?
I don't know.
I don't either.
There used to be one in Brighton, but I don't know. They weren't
Oh,
supposed to check.
that's where Craig Carlson had that on Old Brighton Road. That big farm, there was a
Yeah,
silo back there.
There was one on Bromley Lane up east.
Oh, okay.
Was it along the cases?
Oh, sure. Sorry.
Oh no, you're good. I'm just looking through some of the questions and.
See, Daddy used to take the wheat into farmers marketing.
In downtown Denver or in Commerce City?
Well, it's
Well, it
right,
used to be Adams City. But
it's right there.
Mm.
It was where south of the stockyard.
So, oh, okay.
He was on the board of directors there.
Mm.
So then, it's odd, so was there more of just like the people they were dealing with that they didn't use the East Lake grain elevator, or what was?
Well, I don't think he had enough storage for it.
Oh, like that was full, so they had to go somewhere else.
Yeah.
Oh wow, okay. Because that would have been, was that before or after the bigger elevator burned down? 'Cause there used to be two. And maybe that burned down before any of us here. Because
I don't remember.
I've seen one. There used to be an even bigger.
Well, they tore one of the silos down, but I don't remember there being. Oh, that's scary. I don't remember there being a fire. There was a fire.
Well, some of the records seem to indicate one of the elevators, or maybe it was a large silo, used to be there. But
There
it
was a
burned down.
silo that's, you know, where that boxcar is, no boxcar, caboose. There's a piece of cement there. That's where
Maybe that's what-
and they tore that down. I don't know why they tore that down. Oh, well, maybe it was ready to fall down. I don't know.
Yeah, there is some of that sometimes. Yeah, I guess we can certainly wrap up the agricultural questions if you don't have too much on that. Only because don't want to make you try to talk about things you don't have any information about or anything like that. But
Are you looking to see? Are you looking for an answer as to how they farmed with the equipment and so on?
we have some of that information. More like just what was it like? You know, how did it affect life? Were there any particular things like when they would open up the ditches to fill them? Like, was there like any sort of social aspects, like any events? Did people do anything to celebrate? Like, was there kind of anything that surrounded the overall agricultural system, in particular the ditches, that like wouldn't be easily figured out just looking through engineering records or stuff like that?
Well, if they wanted water, they just called the ditch rider, and the water came through, But let's see, my grandma had alfalfa on hers. She had 80 acres, and but the water came down there. I would have picked asparagus on the ditch. That was what the ditch was good for, was to be able to pick wild asparagus.
It just grew wild
It did. It
asparagus.
grew wild, yeah. Oh, we played in the ditch. We swam in the lake. And see, the lakes have all dried up, so
Yeah.
that was a big thing in the summer. We could, Glenn would always let us swim in his lake up there.
Mm.
In the wintertime, we could ice skate.
And we could ice skate, yes. I could ice skate, I can't roller skate. We could ice skate on that low one, but the lake was bumpy. We never did, and I never did ever in my entire life see that number 2 reservoir full. It was either East Lake, or it was either Glenn's Lake or East Lake. I never seen the other one over there that's on the north or south side of 124th. I've never seen water in it, but there's a lake over there.
Yeah, it may have been just anticipated to fill up but never did, or
Apparently there was water, and I have to ask Gary, my brother, if there was water in it, but like I say, and then the water came down, and they would put it into East Lake, and then anybody that lived to the east, then they would call the ditch rider and tell them they're ready for their
rider,
water.
like a horse rider.
Yeah, he was a guy that made sure that that he cleaned out the weeds. We still have ditch riders. If Farmers Reservoir has them, they go out and they clean out the ditch and make sure that the weeds. And then when it's time to run the water through, there's not something plugging
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah, it's called the ditch rider, RIDER. And so then they would call and say, okay, so like Lordson's would take theirs, and Grandma would take hers, and my aunt and Uncle Foster, Fred and Eva Foster would take theirs, Brammings and so on. Then it dumped off in a lake on 128th and Hawley. And that was kind of a holding pond. And then it went on through to some of the others down the way. But I don't know where that dry creek starts.
I don't either.
No idea.
And we have a rather lengthy report on
Yeah.
that stuff. We can
Yeah.
definitely get to some of that. But yeah, it's more like the things like the asparagus, or like, you know,
Oh, yeah.
did you build boats and send them down? I mean, I did stuff like that with rainwater, right? Like, what were there little things like that, you know, about, or was it just like that's the water for the farm and didn't really
Oh,
think?
we never did that.
No.
Oh, we waded in it all the time. As a matter of fact,
I don't
sometimes,
think we even played in the ditch.
oh, we did. We played in the ditch all the time.
Some people might have.
And then, well, yeah. But you know, when you were growing up, you know, like my mom worked, she worked in Thornton. She worked at Duke's Drive-In. It's there where, there's a gas station there on 88th and almost to 88th Avenue.
Mm-hmm.
And so she worked there originally. And so kids had to have something to do, so we swam in the lake and played in the ditch and so on like that, yeah. Oh, we didn't fish much. Oh, they fished, Gary fished out of the ditch there when it ran off into East Lake because there was a lot of catfish in there.
Hmm. Where were the fish coming from though? They're not natural
We don't know.
systems, so.
No, they came from somewhere because it was just open water coming
Yeah,
out of
fair.
another lake or something. I'd say it probably, well, I don't know whether it starts up at Stanley Lake or not. But anyway, there was always catfish in that lake.
Okay.
But you had to get them early, otherwise they're muds, you know, they're muddy bottom fish.
Mhm.
So they would be full of mud if you didn't get them early in the season.
Mm.
Everybody had horses. There was lots of horses around, cows. I mean, there was tons of cows. What did your folks raise? Black Angus?
Holsteins.
Holstein. Well, Fred and Emma had a big farm too, though. They had Holsteins, but they raised Angus cattle
Yeah.
for meat.
We
Was there-
we
go ahead.
didn't get involved in the beef until Bob was old enough to start showing.
Oh,
And my dad would never let me out.
Wouldn't let you near the cattle.
I belonged in the house except when I had to drive the horses.
Jeanette did become a good cook. And that she is.
Well then, you know, what would you like to tell us about what you remember? I mean, are there things that you were hoping that we'd ask about, or you were hoping to share, or
Well, nothing unusual.
it could be boring? It's fine. You'd be surprised what we find to be interesting.
I know we only took one trip as a family
It's just like a vacation. Where was that to?
to California.
Yeah, and you just decided to stay in Colorado, I see.
Well, we were just kids then,
Yeah, okay.
very old. That's the only trip we took as a family, because when you have dairy, you have to have somebody there to milk them.
So yeah, it's just kind of a 24/7
Yeah.
Well, and they
operation.
milked them by hand. They didn't have milking machines. You know, when did milking machines come around? Probably 60s, mid-60s?
Well, it was before then,
I don't know.
because, well, part of my job in the summertime was washing the milk machines.
Hmm.
Oh,
And I graduated in '55, so
so it was earlier.
earlier than that.
No idea.
Did you get paid for all your child labor?
No.
Yes, you got a place to eat and sleep.
Yeah, the life experience.
Yeah.
Um,
In those days, kids didn't get paid to do work.
yeah.
Well, and that was hard because you did that in the winter and the summer alike. So, you know, it was cold. You got up at, 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning to milk cows if you had very many head of cows, So it was cold. They used to have, I remember, when we stayed with my grandma in the afternoon. The school bus dropped us off from the East Lake School. And so we'd have to go and feed the chickens and the pigs and different things like that. And then we'd have to go downstairs and get coal out of the basement, and because they had an old home comfort stove, So, and that was their heat, they didn't have, I don't know, she had a furnace, but she didn't have that till, oh gosh, I was well into into elementary school, So it was cold. You had to chip the ice and different things like that,
Yeah, we had coal furnace. I remember
Yeah.
Daddy going and get coal, put in the basement, in
Yeah.
the furnace.
Mhm. Did we've learned from some folks that electricity and plumbing weren't always there at first either. Was you?
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The old outhouse.
Oh, yeah, and you ran fast.
Yeah, I imagine it was cold. Yeah.
But my dad built the house that I grew up in, but during the war, he couldn't get plumbing stuff to finish the bathroom.
Oh, right. Yeah.
He had the stool and the tub, but
No pipes.
Oh, wait.
Yeah.
so we still had the outhouse.
It was on my radar. It was on my radar. So one thing we are hoping, which might help our record searching, do you recall any newspapers that were popular from childhood on that aren't still around? Because we've got the Northland Sentinel, and we kind of know what's happened to that one for a little bit. But what about, were there any other publications that you?
Brighton Blade.
Brighton Blade.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the Rocky Mountain News was the big paper. That was the morning paper, and then the Denver Post was the afternoon paper.
Mm-hmm. So, but specifically, the Rocky Mountain News came in the morning,
It did.
and then the Denver Post at night.
Came in at night.
Interesting.
Yeah, and the Denver Post, or the Rocky Mountain News was like a book. And the Denver Post is this, you had to have a 40-acre field to read this thing because it's,
Like it is
Sorry.
today.
yeah, it's just like it is today. Yeah. The Sentinel is more like the Rocky Mountain News was. It was a shorter paper.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay. And was it more localized, or was it still kind of Denver at large?
Oh, I think it
The
was
Brighton Blade was mostly Brighton.
mostly, yeah.
Brighton, yeah.
Yeah, the Denver Post was,
Still,
or
yeah.
Rocky Mountain News rather, was the whole
The
city.
whole-
Yeah.
Okay. Was there anything kind of like the Brighton Blade that was more like north focused on more of the agricultural stuff and people that didn't
Well, I think
view themselves as Denver?
A little bit of everything.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they had obituaries.
Yeah.
They had babies, people that got married. They would take stuff from like the county clerk and recorder that, they listed births and divorces and marriages and
Yes.
deaths. Yeah,
Do you remember the Thornton Thunder newspaper?
I do.
I don't.
Yeah. Was that a pretty good paper, or did you read it much?
No, that was, I was not a big newspaper reader, but I did read the Rocky Mountain News, but the others, when you get a little bit older, you don't have time for that kind of stuff. You're lucky to read a book at school, so.
Was there how else did people get news? I mean, was word of mouth or rather popular, like just kind of like the grapevine, everybody, or was there
Oh, gossip.
Well,
Yeah.
I mean, gossip still works.
Yeah, gossip still works.
It may not be true.
I think it was probably radio and television. Radio a lot, because we had like channels. Well, it's Channel 7. What are they saying now that they've been around for 70 years or something? So I can remember 7. I can remember Channel 7 and Channel 9. I don't remember Channel 4, but I.
Well,
Carl
years
Akers
ago,
was
they
on
used to have party lines on the telephone.
Yeah, they did.
Mm-hmm.
And my dad was a volunteer fireman.
For
They'd call
which-
him for Eastley.
Eastley.
For Eastley, okay.
They'd call him and then it would start ringing for everybody else who was on the line, so we knew there was a fire somewhere.
And the phone on a party line, if you rang one time, it was yours, but if it rang twice, it was whoever else was on your party line. And my brother and sister-in-law lived in Eastlake there, across from the Catholic Church.
Mhm.
And so my mom's was one ring, and my sister-in-law, brother and sister-in-law's was 2 rings. So that's how you knew to answer your phone.
I would get so confused.
Well, and then you go to pick it up, and they're talking on the phone, so you can hear their conversation. So a lot of times I'm sure that went about,
How did the party lines come about? Because I could imagine the infrastructure in Thornton, but when you're a little further away, how did they get installed?
I have no idea
Yeah.
how they.
Just
I imagine
show up one day? Yeah.
It just came with, but a lot of people, like my aunt, she lived there at Highway 7. She didn't have telephone. They didn't have telephone that far out.
So only, it stops
So,
somewhere.
yeah, and so they, finally, I think the telephone company just kind of came around. It finally got moved, north.
Kind of like as they're building roads and
Yep.
doing improvements, they
Yep.
kind of add the phone
Yeah,
line.
like you say, the infrastructure.
Okay, okay.
Well, Eastside had its own water system
Right,
until
right.
we were buying more water from the city of Thornton than we were producing. So
Yeah.
that's why that's gone. But, and same way with the sewer system,
Mm-hmm. Taking that. Okay. Sorry. That actually segues into
Wow.
I could ask so many questions, but I don't really know where to focus because I was really expecting a lot of the farm questions, and I understand if you weren't terribly interested in farms at 12, because I wouldn't have been either, but.
What do you think you want to know about the farms? What are you looking for?
Well, making sure that it's a strong story to tell and people don't get, the wrong ideas for it, in the sense of like preserving it in the accurate and correct way, but also understanding how it worked with everything around at the time, because most of these subdivisions, aside from their names, the families who worked the farms are almost all forgotten, and so we don't want to continue down that road, right?
True.
So
That's true. Well, I think, I think probably maybe I'm speaking out of whack, but back in the day, everybody had worked so hard to keep their farms and stuff going, but a family member died, like my grandma died. She had 80 acres, but after my grandpa died, and there was just the 4 girls, well, they got married and went off about their own business. But so there was nobody to run the farms. The kids, it's just, even like today, kids don't want to do something that their family did. They find that there's better money and so on. So that's why I think why a lot of the farms sold was there was just nobody to, well, like Mary Alice's family. There was Mary Alice and her brother.
Mary's had a theory, I can't recall. She had a theory that there was a large drought, which the records seem to indicate that might have been the case, that it's sometime in the 1950s and 60s, there was a rather large drought cycle that changed what people farmed in the area, and that seemed to have accelerated the selling off of the land.
Yes, because there was no water. So and that's like kind of what we've got today. That's why there was a lot of what they call dryland farming. My mom and her sister, and then her other sister had. There was 3 plots. They each had 75 acres up there along. We call it the big ditch road. It's 100, and now it's behind your house. And so Lenny had one, Mom had one, and then Lola had one, but they sold that and sold that to the Dirkses. But they planted dryland wheat up there, so that's why we were talking about dumping the grain, But I think a lot of families just. It was one of those things where they just didn't see farming. There was no the water was tough. Kids didn't want to. None of my family wanted to farm. I have 3 brothers, and I'm not farming. Now my one brother, he likes cattle, but he's passed away. So that left it for his boys to do it, and neither one of my boys wanted to follow into the farming or anything like that. So I think it was A, the water issue, B, that was a lot of money back then. Fine, I'll just sell it. Nobody wants to take care of it. Farm equipment was expensive. Seed was expensive.
Well, nowadays, most people don't want to work 7 days a week.
No, 24 hours.
And that's what it took to make the farm
absolutely.
work. Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you all purchase from the Denver Seed Company typically?
Well, it was Denver Seed, or we went over. What was the one over in Brighton? It was there.
Brighton Feed.
Was it? Or it was right there on the corner. There was a old gas station on the corner, and then it was right along. let's see, that's gotta be South Main
Was
Street.
it just Brighton Beach?
No, it was the seed company, and you had to walk up the steps to get to the seed, all the seeds were in
I
drawers.
never bought seed.
Oh, I know, well, I went with my grandma, but the seed, if you were buying big amounts of seed, we went to Denver Seed, yes, downtown.
And did you order from their like pamphlets, or did you always go in?
Oh, no, you went in and told them what you wanted.
Oh.
And they knew you, so normally they knew what you wanted, you know. Okay, well, we're getting this, and my grandma's name was Frances, but they called her Mary. And so he'd say, okay, Mary, I know what you need. So my aunt would take my grandma to town so she could get this certain type of seed. And then she'd bring it back. She did, remember Jocums that lived there on the corner? Jocums? They lived, they farmed Granny's place for a long time, and they did it with horse and like, a fallow, no, that's not what I want to call it. They would go in and rake it up. They had the things, remember, and the horse, they always took the horses, and then it was like a rake. And then they would go in like with a sort of a drill-like thing, and that's how they put the seed in the ground.
Mm-hmm.
And then when the hay come up, that was alfalfa. When the alfalfa come up, then they had these big long sickles, you know, and so the horses would go ahead of them, and the sickle they would put down and they cut it. Then they come back through and they had a machine that raked. It had a rake. They raked it, and then they come back through, but they didn't bale it because they had no balers. So they would go along with the horse and a buggy, a big wagon, and they would put the hay. They would take a pitchfork and put the hay up on the wagon, and then take it up and sometimes they took it, sometimes somebody else bought it. You know, they could find somebody to buy the hay.
How did the families get along? I've heard in early Thornton, some people said everyone minded the children, usually.
Oh.
How is that out around the farms?
Everybody got along, you know.
Oh, yeah. Because we're on the same boat.
If you needed something, you know, the barn raisings that they talk about, that happened around Eastlake all the time. Somebody would need something, or somebody lost something. Oh, and if you lost a child or something, or a husband or whatever, they would just swarm around you with food and taking care of you and money, and whatever money they had, they would share, you know, which wasn't always a lot, you know. But they would, anytime that you needed something, somebody was always there for you, you know.
That's lovely.
It was. It's too bad it's not that way today.
Yep.
I think that's probably the thing that bothers me the worst is we don't even neighbor in our own neighborhoods anymore. I live in a cul-de-sac. I know who my neighbors are. But we used to get together all the time, you know, like in the summer. My one neighbor and I used to sit in the gutter and drink beer. But you know, nobody does that anymore. I know everybody's busy, and the kids, oh my gosh, we need to do something with these poor kids. They have nothing to do. You know, parents are busy, they're trying to work, you know, trying to make a house payment for this cracker box that they moved into, but at least it's something. And so I feel sorry for them. I mean, you know, we never thought we didn't have streetlights in Eastlake. So somebody's mom would call one or another and say, you know, you kids, your mom just called me, said you girls need to go home. We used to be outside all the time. Yeah, we never lived in a house. In the wintertime it was different, but we were at each other's house all the time. We were doing things with each other, you know. So that's the camaraderie that farming communities have. And I think that's one of the things that we hated to see, or I know I did, that we don't have that anymore, you know. Blacktop.
So despite like the distance that the farms were, you know, sometimes maybe a mile or two from your neighbor, right? Walking at least. Despite the distance, you felt like you were a closer community. At least, Jeanette, would you agree?
In fact, the girls that I grew up with all still live around here.
just never, this is home, they didn't want to leave. Yeah. Do you still hang out with as many as you can, I assume?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, Jen cooks. So when Jen says she's cooking, they all come
So
in.
should we have had this interview at your house?
Yeah, exactly. Yes, and supper, yeah.
Well, on that note, since I did say I would check in after an hour, it has been an hour. We are able to stay. I could keep finding ways to talk. Trust me, I'm good at that. That's the one thing I am good at, is talking a lot. But I want to leave it to you. If, you know, I don't want to keep you here if you want to get going. We can stay at least another hour. So it's up to you.
That's up to you, Jen.
I
You
don't
know
what
what-
else, I don't know what else we need to say. I mean,
If you've got questions, though, give us the questions.
Well, that's the tough part is we did interview quite a few people already, and with this we were hoping to talk more about the kind of farm operations and the ditches and such, but it makes sense that you wouldn't know all of that, right? You can't all be experts about everything. And so at this point, more really just about you and your life and experience in the area and whatever you feel like you want to share. I mean,
Jen,
it's
how
kind
did
of-
your
I may have a few questions.
how did
Yeah,
your
go ahead.
family get where the mortuary was, where the mortuary is? How, do you know how they got there? I mean, how did they,
it was belonged to my grandpa and grandma Green.
so they had that and then they had the where the barn is and then well, that was your dad.
Ehlers.
Oh,
had the
Ehlers
barn.
had that, that's
The
right.
Greens had the land where the Highland
Highland
mortuary-
Cemetery, Jan's family had.
All right, I have to admit, I don't know if I know that's it.
And her uncle that used to work there, they always call, what
Oh,
was
that's,
his
I was
name?
thinking of the Highlands neighborhood.
No, Highland Cemetery.
Yeah.
What was his name?
Bill.
Bill, oh, but I didn't ever know what his right name was. They always called him Digger. He dug graves at the mortuary.
Oh.
Yeah, he sold all of that land and it was supposed to go up to Colorado Boulevard, but Thornton sold off part of it.
Hmm. So the cemetery was planned to be bigger. Oh, wow. Yeah, a lot of the dreams seem to just go to 120th and just stop because they were trying to build all the homes there and it didn't, and then they were trying to build this. And you said you might have a few questions.
Yeah, I was wondering if you remember any of the Thornton Festival Day parades or if you attended any of those. I think they started in the late 50s and went through the 60s. They may have stopped in the 80s, but they usually went down Washington Street.
Mhm.
No,
Okay,
yeah.
did you enjoy those?
Oh, well, sure. That was a big deal. We gotta, we'd come to work with my mom because the Duke's Drive-In was right on Washington Street. Across from the, Duke's Drive-In, it was across the street from the condemned, we call it where their Miller's Supermarket was. So she was right across, so we could sit out front and watch the parade go by. So that was a big deal to a kid. So was the Adams County Fair. And the Adams County Fair used to be where the Brighton City
Fourth.
Hall is.
4th Street.
Okay.
Yeah, and there was an A&W across the street. So you went, those were the big things. And it always came kind of at fall time, So that was something, that was a big deal to get out of Eastlake,
I know the fair used to be a big deal.
Yeah.
Used to have huge parade,
Mhm.
floats,
Mm-hmm.
you name it, they had it. Don't do that anymore.
I just remember that, the guys had their cars, it was car clubs. My brother graduated from Merritt Hutton before it became Thornton, so he graduated in 1964. And so I remember those guys all had their souped up cars and then, like you say, the floats and the cheerleaders and so on. Oh yeah, it was a big deal. It was a big deal coming down Washington Street,
That's cool.
I've noticed a lot of people who've been here way longer than me don't know the name Merritt Hutton.
Oh yeah.
It was in the same location as the Thornton High School.
that's across the street.
Across the street, so,
Merritt Hutton was here, and then they tore it down. And then they built Thornton across the street
okay.
on the west side of the road, and then they built, is that Thornton, is that a middle school now? Is that what it is?
I think
Okay.
so, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, the school buildings are an interesting one because their architecture is not bad, but the materials often used are pretty toxic, and so
Really?
that's why a lot of them are getting torn down. It's because they'll have problems, whether it be a leaking roof or this
Yeah.
or that.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of asbestos and stuff.
that school was named after the Huttons. They lived over in Sunny Slope, and the dad was a newspaper reporter for, I'll have to ask Lisa, either, I can't remember whether it was for the Rocky Mountain News or the Denver Post, but he was a newspaper reporter. And for some reason, they named the school after him. I don't know why. I don't know whether it was just a big deal because he was well known as a reporter and so on like that. So I guess he got to name that, they named it after him, or they donated money, one of the two, I'm not sure.
I'd love to find out why.
I'll have to, maybe my brother knows, because like I say, he went there, because East Lake only had grades, we didn't have kindergarten.
Mhm.
So we went to grades 1 through 6 at East Lake, and then we went to junior high school, and I think Gary though went to junior high and high. It was Merritt Junior Senior High is what it was, and so he went to school from 7th grade and he graduated there. Then they broke him up, and so like I went to East Lake to school, and then I went part of the year to North Glen Junior High, and then they finished building Huron Junior High, and then I graduated from North Glen. Now my boys both graduated from Thornton, because that's where we were in the way the map was set up. And then they decided, they could go to Horizon or whatever, because now they can go wherever they want, as long as they've got room for them, if nobody else in the district wants to go. But I'll have to ask Gary if he knows where the Merritt Hutton came from.
When I went from 1st grade through 8th grade. We had 8th grade graduation at East Lake.
Oh. Now my mom went 1st through 12th grade at East Lake.
So did my mother.
Yeah.
And you went to high school
In Brighton.
in Brighton. You went to Brighton, okay.
I'm also wondering how the 1981 tornado affected
That was
you
a
both.
mess. Yeah. It landed, it came across, I was at work, it started in Lakewood, and came across and kind of lifted up, and then it come down like where the James Hill Agency is, and tore things up there. And then it went on up. My mom was sitting outside waiting for my kid. My 2 kids went to Wood Glen Elementary School, and she was sitting outside waiting for the boys. And all of a sudden, somebody from in the school said, I saw her sitting there. So they went out and got her. I think there was other parents too, or grandparents, and took them inside. But it made a mess, scared the daylights out of everybody. And then that was it, But it did. There was a lot of damage, It was a crazy thing.
Yeah, I heard the National Guard came in to help and things like
they
that.
did.
And then the next year, having a blizzard.
Yeah.
The same day Mark graduated from high school.
Oh, no kidding.
We had just gotten home,
Wow.
and the thunder and lightning was just horrific. There was not a screen that was not ripped to pieces. The dogs trying to get into the house.
Oh, wow.
We were scared to death.
In the house that you're in now?
No, I was still on the farm.
Oh, you were still out on the farm. Oh, my goodness.
But it seems like it didn't do a whole lot of damage to
No,
the
we
building.
didn't get any of the damage from
Yeah, because it
her.
was mostly a little more south, the damage.
Yeah.
It was close to Margaret and Leo's house.
Oh, really? Oh, I'll be darned.
It would be interesting to know what homes have been replaced.
Well,
since
you
the
go on
original
Pearl
building.
Street. It was all on Pearl Street here.
So there used to be a lot more on Pearl Street then? Or is it always kind of?
No, it's always, I don't know why there's such a few homes there. You know, it's not like the next street over where there's house and house and house. There was just a little bit of, you know, just a little bits of houses there. It could be maybe they didn't rebuild, but I'm sure they did. I'm sure they did, you know.
And I know it jumped over and there was a, you know, perfect untouched house and then a destroyed house
Yes,
right next
yeah.
to it.
James Hill, that is the real estate. I don't know whether have you talked to his kids? They've been around here. Hills has had a real. I don't know. Do they still have the real estate agency there on Pearl Street?
I'm not sure.
James Hill. Really?
James Hill, yeah. He's probably gone, but his kids would probably be around.
Yeah, it looks like he was established in 1959.
Yeah.
It's like they're still around.
Yeah, it might be somebody that they might have some pictures or something and talk to that's what, you and I have talked, and I'm not picking at anyone, but the unfortunate thing is they let this go so long that, you're talking to second and third generation families that we heard stories and so on and so forth, so trying to figure out about ditches and farming and so on. Gosh, if you'd have talked.
We got like a 500-page report for that, fortunately.
Oh, well, that's good. But that's just one of those things that you don't think much about, especially when you're a kid. You don't think about anything like that,
Well, what was on the top of your mind? I mean, you're growing up in the sunny farmland, just working all day. I mean, what was on your mind? And I mean, I can imagine what would have been on mine.
Getting out of Eastlake.
Well, I had 4-H projects. When I wasn't outside, I was working on those. Sewing and
So just literally keeping
finishing
busy.
and
Yeah. Sorry, what was that last one?
refinishing furniture,
Oh, okay.
cooking, canning. We just did it all.
So were you a member of the So-So Club and things like that, or do you remember those
I
clubs?
was a member of Pinup Girls.
That's so cute. I love that name.
That was the home ec, and Good Luck was the agriculture. And then they
Okay.
joined. I don't remember what year they joined together.
Don't look at me, I don't know. Have you ever gone into the 4-H building?
A couple times. Over there at the Adams County
In the
Fairgrounds.
Adams County
and stuff,
Fairgrounds,
yeah.
yeah. Have you gone to the Historical Society building as well?
Mhm.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah, the scope of this project is supposed to be about Thornton, but as we've dived into it, the agricultural piece is also
Sure.
as important as the city itself.
Yeah.
And so, we originally focused a lot on kind of like I said, that 1950s era, but as we got to meet people, we were, shifted our focus more
Of
north.
course, in those days, everybody had a big garden.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
You had to work in the garden too.
In addition to the farm.
Yeah, because that's how you lived. You raised beef and pigs and chickens, and then, fall came and,
You did canning.
canning and so on like that. Yeah.
This sounds exactly like my grandparents' farm. It's what they would do. They had the huge garden and then they had their fields. And my grandma was canning most of the
Yeah.
season.
Cutting corn off the cob
Yeah.
They even used to can meat.
yeah,
Mm.
snapping beans. Oh, my goodness. So we didn't want to do that.
Snapping beans. I did that with my grandma all
Yeah.
the time growing up.
Oh, that's a terrible job.
Yeah. Or splitting the peas open so you could get the peas out.
That one's tedious.
Yes. My grandma she had apple trees, and she used to take the apples and get them, we'd climb it up in the apple tree and get all the apples off, and then she'd take them in the house and wash them, and she would peel them, and then she'd lay them. Somebody got up on the roof. She had, one of my brothers probably got up and laid a bed sheet up on the roof and laid the apples on there. That was their, so they could hydrate the apples. And then she tied them up, and then over the winter, she would make like fried pies, apple pies, and so on like that.
Hmm.
Yeah.
I'd never heard
Tree
that.
story.
Oh, yeah. And on the roof of the house over the porch, where the washing machine was, and where you had to go downstairs to get the coal, on that roof was and they dried, you know,
Oh,
and
yeah, they would.
yeah, and then she just take and tie them up and then hang them out in the porch there on the window. There were, you know, they had the windows that they had the little latch on them that opened like this. So she would just hang it on that, and then when she wanted apples, she would just go out and take them out of this sack and
Yeah, we used to make apple cider too.
yeah,
From apples.
But the apples weren't really, well, I didn't know there was an orchard so close to here, but they weren't really grown commercially, or was it more for like
Just-
personal?
Just personal.
Yeah, okay.
There was a big apple farm, Orchard Corner, that was, like I said,
Yeah.
that's how it got its name. And then Dean Sway's family, they worked for a farmer, Furbush. They lived at 120th and Huron. They had a big orchard over there. And so there was, but the apples were more, you know, for personal use, you know.
I'm sorry, I want to back up to the Pinup Girls Club, or sorry, I got the name wrong, but what did you do with that club organization?
It was on home ec.
Oh, it was all
Sewing,
home ec, okay.
knitting, crocheting, canning, cooking.
Was the Pinup Girls name like a joke?
No, that was,
Is it more like a pin?
A
Like-
play on words.
Play on
is what you
words,
mean.
yeah.
that's the only name they ever had was
Interesting.
Peanut Girls.
Is that organization still around at all? Do you know? Or?
No, they joined Good Luck.
And Good Luck is now the organization. Okay.
The 4-H club.
Oh, it's all in 4-H. Then.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So there might be some institutional knowledge at the 4-H that we should try to get
could
tapped
be.
into a little bit. I know Gloria was trying to help us out with that, but it seems things went.
Well, if anybody knew, she would.
Wow,
Yeah.
yeah, she had a lot of.
And she was busy when she was talking to me, so I can imagine that I didn't get her full attention because she was doing hundreds of things, it seems.
Sure.
Really gonna be missed.
I'm not sure. Her sisters might.
Virginia might.
Virginia, I don't know, I don't think that Paula and Margaret, now they graduated from Mary Hutton also, but I don't know that they had
Because
much to
Virginia
do.
was the
She was a-
livestock.
Yeah,
judge.
she was the farmer.
Yeah.
She still farms and raises sheep. Is that what they have now instead of goats?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not milking a goat, thanks.
I'm not milking a sheep either.
Yeah, well, I don't mean.
I'm not milking a cow either.
Well, you definitely touched on a lot of what we wanted to talk about. Some things that we haven't asked you were meant more for like kind of future looking. But we could certainly start to wrap up. Is there anything that you hope people would learn from your experience, and that could be brought into, say, the Reitenstein barn property or other efforts like that? I mean, are there things that you would hope that people could gather from your history and the community around you that you would hope to see in the future?
Well, it would be nice to get back. Every Sunday my mother had cooked dinner
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, family.
for friends. My dad loved to entertain, so he'd invite all these people, so she cooked
Oh, my
Sunday
God,
dinner.
her mom and dad sang at the East Lake Church. They had absolutely the most stunning voices. Oh my goodness sakes. When everybody said, could Joe and Ione sing? Oh, and they did. They had they don't have a choir at East Lake anymore, but when used to be a lot of people, but no, people don't go to church anymore either. Me personally, I just like to be sure that they don't tear anything more down,
Mhm.
That's a huge issue. I look at when my brother and I travel a lot, and even though the United States is a young country, we tear things down, we do away with it, so our history goes away, and houses go away, and families that, like Jan, hopefully, whoever has Jan's home, and then her brother built a home next door. But the family home that's out there, I really, really hope that they're able to keep that, you know. My sister-in-law lived over at 95th and Huron. Her family came here from Germany. I think that she told me that like in the late 1800s, early 1900s, and they lived up on the top of the hill, and the house is gone. It's a gas station. Now the house that they built is still at 95th and Huron, and they farmed, and her mom was a homemaker. Her dad worked on the farm. Her dad had the brothers, and they all farmed. You know, the Eppingers all farmed. And then just like, here's a prime example. Thornton bought all the property that Thornton is on. Original Thornton was, and that's why it's called Eppinger Boulevard.
Right.
Evelyn, you know, and so on like that. It was all named after Myrna. So on. It was named after all the kids or the grandkids or whatever, you know. So, but times were getting tough. They didn't, again, they hadn't, well, like Evie's dad, Evie was an only child. So there was nobody to take up after he could no longer farm, you know. So they almost had to sell it, and Thornton probably offered them at that time probably a pretty decent amount of money that they could live, and they did. They lived comfortable the rest of their lives, you know.
You know, like Evie said, she gets lost when she lives in Boulder now, up by Niwot. She gets lost every time she comes down here.
Yeah, because something has
Because
changed.
the landmarks are all gone.
Yeah.
What was some landmarks that you would use to kind of help remember?
Oh, the
where you're
different farms.
at? Dairy farm.
Yeah, the family, like Carlson's house used to be across the street from Aldra, or from there's a Walmart there, like about 106th and Washington. You know, they tear down all the family homes. You know, I am surprised that they kept the Stonehawker farm, you know, because
Which side? Which?
the Stonehawker farm is down there west of the Margaret Carpenter Rec Center.
Okay.
It's a red building, red brick. But they raised all of their kids there until they built the new house.
The house out on the hollow, yeah.
You had mentioned that, Jan, that your family's properties are still there. Where about are they?
Well,
Not the Riggins property, but the Greens.
the green is the one the Carlsons bought, and it's vacant now.
Where is that at?
It's on 149th and Colorado Boulevard.
And the house across the street from it, that house has been there forever. I don't know, Jan, who used to live there. Well, J.D. Plunk used to live there. Well, so did Dunham's. Didn't Dunham's live there? Yeah.
And Wireman's.
Oh, did Wireman's live there before they
Yep.
moved up by the lake? Oh, I didn't know that.
I only ask because if we don't say anything,
Yeah.
you know, then exactly as you said, it just gets.
It
paved
just
over.
gets
I mean,
tossed, yeah.
Um,
I think that's the thing that bothers me the worst is that, you know, they were kind of like a bull in a china closet. They just came in one fell swoop,
Right.
everything's gone. So, you know, and I felt that they wanted to do away with a lot of the properties in Eastlake. Well, they took the locker down. Yeah.
Well, that story is a little funky. It's gotten away from us. The
Well,
city
so-
didn't intentionally do anything.
Oh, I don't know.
Well,
like
to
you.
what I've been told.
Yeah, you're exactly. They said that they had to tear it down because the asbestos was so bad in it. Okay, so, and then the city of Northland, absolutely, just,
Well, they tore down the East Lakes.
oh my God, that was a pure absolute nightmare.
Yeah.
They come in, boom, and it was done. Nobody knew it was going, nothing. You know, I see the bus garage is still there though, you know, so you tear the school down.
So there are remnants.
Uh-huh.
The bus garage.
The bus garages, if you go in off Claude Court on the south end of the building, if you go back there, you'll see the old bus garage, and it has like 3 or 4 doors. That's where the bus garage was.
And the East Lake School.
Yeah, that's what we were saying.
Did you ever go down the fire escape? They
Oh yeah, that was fun.
had a metal fire escape on the second floor, and you slide down. Oh, it was so much fun.
Yeah, it was.
Like how?
There was a door.
Great,
Yeah.
great big one.
There was a door inside and they unlatched the door and then you slid down. It's just like a slide, a covered slide like at Water World or something.
Okay.
And then you ended up, sometimes Mrs. Brown would let us take a shortcut instead of having to go down the steps to go outside. She'd say, okay, because we played over here, there was baseball fields and so on over there. So we only went out that when it was warm. And then, oh my God, that thing was hot on the back of your legs.
And
Because we
freezing in the winter.
had to wear dresses to school.
Oh.
We weren't allowed to wear pants. In the wintertime, you could kind of get away with it because of the snow.
Cold, yeah.
Yeah.
But the same.
Well, I walked a mile to school in the snow. Oh, no, I don't think so. Walked across the tracks and I was at school. But I have to tell my kids that, and my grandkids have nothing. My kids don't believe me, my grandkids still do.
So I'm just I'm stuck on this 149th in Colorado property, and I think I may have found it
It's on the east side.
on the east side. Okay, it looks like, is this it?
Got a blonde brick house? Yeah, that's it.
There's 2 houses on there.
This one?
No, isn't that the
Close
one
here.
across the street? That's the one across the street, isn't it, Jan? Isn't that Dunham's old house?
Yeah.
It is that one. Or because here's Colorado, and here's 146. But I don't see 149th, unfortunately.
Go to 152nd.
152nd.
That's too far.
Because here's E470.
Now our property is just,
Over this way a little bit?
yeah,
Okay.
there's 2 brick houses.
Is it still under the green name, under the records? Or do you know what it?
It's been sold, I don't know who.
Oh, okay. Yeah, you said that, I'm sorry.
Did you find it?
Found the area.
Oh, okay.
Which there are some older buildings out here I did not know, so there's definitely some possibilities. There are surprisingly some of these little remnants that nobody really knows about, but when you look at it, you can clearly tell that this building is older than 50 years old.
Well, here, you've got Joe Green right here.
So she did have, okay.
Okay, so it's 152nd. That's where the property ended, but it's right here on Colorado Boulevard.
Okay.
But
And then
I don't know if the barn is still there or not.
there's gotta be some stuff out
Mountain
there.
barn.
well, I think it is.
I haven't been by.
The silos are still there, the grain silos.
Well, Carlson's were taking those,
Well,
or they were supposed to.
wow, if they did.
I don't know. I don't have anything to do with that. Thank goodness.
Yeah, that was kind of.
Yeah, I'm trying not to bring the stress back to you.
Oh, it's yeah.
And is the Stonehawker property technically in North Cleveland?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
It would only just boy right across the line.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, that's where our jurisdiction
Yeah.
ends.
Yeah.
Well, is Highland Mortuary or?
That's Thornton.
That's
Yeah, that is Thornton, yeah. Since we're back to the cemetery, I'm curious because the Riverdale, when you look up through the records, it seems like historically the Riverdale Cemetery was kind of where people used in the area. Was that some, because like it's in a lot of the Denver Public Library records as well, but
The Riverdale Cemetery? Where's
yeah,
the Riverdale Cemetery?
it's in Denver.
Well, yeah, I ride the train by it every day. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, Riverside.
Rivers, thank you.
There you go.
Riverside.
Yeah.
Uh,
So like Jan's folks, like Jan said, everybody bought out at
Crown Hill.
Crown Hill.
hmm.
But there's also the Elmwood Cemetery that is over on Old Brighton Road.
Okay.
And there's a lot of history there too.
Yeah.
You might go in, I don't know, whether I know that Brighton has a historical society or something, but you,
Yeah, they're a bit more active and established. And,
yeah, you might find out a little more from them.
Mhm.
But Riverside was, but that's where they buried paupers. There was a lot of pauper graves there, you
What is
know.
it? I don't know.
Pauper is somebody that doesn't, they just buried them. Either they didn't know who they were or they had no money.
Oh, really?
Pauper, is that the right word?
There's
I've heard that.
There's
Yeah.
a lot of Japanese people buried
Yeah, oh,
there.
yeah,
Mm.
yeah.
And my great grandfather's buried there.
Yeah.
Jim found them.
Yeah, my grandma and grandpa Dietz are buried there, and their families, the Nazarenes and so
And
on
I
like
think
that from over in
Fairmont
Louisville.
has taken it over now because it was all nothing but weeds.
Oh, it was horrible.
Mhm. Yeah, it's kind of, now the location's a little funky with all the industry around it and such.
Well, you used to be able to go in off Brighton Boulevard, but since the train went through there, you've got to go down York Street
Yeah.
and go in off that way.
Yeah, a little funky.
See, they wanted to move all those Japanese burial spots.
Oh, they did?
Yeah, I have a good friend that is involved in it.
And are they going to do it?
No.
Oh, I was going to
They
say.
can't, they had to rewrite from the train track.
Mm.
Oh, I see, for the train, they wanted to do it. Oh, wow.
Wanted
So
the
they
train
just
to
shut
go
the-
right through.
Oh, so they moved the train over and shut that gate so you can't go in off
Yeah.
Brighton Boulevard now. They have tours of that if you want to take a tour.
Yeah, well, now we're getting into like my personal life, but in Cincinnati they have some really beautiful cemeteries, and some other places I've lived, they have really, beautiful cemeteries, and people use them as parks historically.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's kind of where I was going with that question, is like, were these spaces used in that capacity? Because I can't imagine the,
I don't think so.
I don't think
Yeah.
so either.
I could maybe imagine the Riverside, especially before a lot of the growth in the area, but the Orlander Funeral Home, or the Highland one, I wouldn't imagine you go there for a park experience.
But they've got new, they always just had, the flat gravestones, and now they've got benches and.
No, it's all already, right, yeah.
So, it's something.
Um,
Elmwood Cemetery, though, is a neat cemetery to
Okay.
look at too,
so don't tear anything else down. Is there anything else you'd like to
Yeah,
impart
please don't
on
tear
the community of Thornton before we look at any more of these properties with kind of your perspective in mind? And
Everybody complains about Eastlake and the old charm it had. And unfortunately, there you say again, it was going to end at 120. And then all of a sudden, these houses just started popping up, and Eastlake was surrounded, So I think now that we think, I was at a city council meeting. I'm on the liquor licensing authority board, and I had to go before them to tell them why we needed to have that board. But they say they're going to build 50,000 more homes in the next 5 years.
well,
Where are we going to get the water?
so
That's a big issue, is the water,
that's a great question. We're currently trying to figure it out.
Yeah.
Anytime you bring it up with Thornton, their answer is, we've got plenty of water.
We have a new city manager, or will have. The other one went south.
They don't.
Sorry.
No, I was. It's definitely a hot button issue. I know that they're working on the planning commission extended the comment period for the pipeline,
Yeah.
so we don't have an answer yet. Yes, that's the narrative. Is we have all this water. I'm probably in more agreement with you all. I don't know where it's going to come from, but nobody's asking me.
City of Fort Collins doesn't want to let go of their water. They need it as bad as Thornton does.
Well, it's not. It wouldn't. They're not tied to it. It's the county.
Correct.
The farmers need the water.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
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 But we have the water as a legal entity.
Correct.
The city of Thornton has
You're
purchased
correct.
it.
You're correct. And they
Um,
got to let it go. But they're going to dig their heels in the ground as hard as they can.
Everybody is. That's just what it's
Absolutely.
gonna come
It's
down to.
horrible.
But the reason I kind of asked is related to this. A lot of the water rights we have bought up still have functioning farms on them. They still are operated in that way. We lease them to people now, and so
Oh.
as we grow north, these questions are going to come up as we. We didn't ask these questions before in the 70s and the 80s, right? But now we have the opportunity to ask it because they're paying me to make this plan, right? So,
And that's a great thing. It's better to be friends than it is come in and do eminent domain, and then everybody's. And I think that's probably the thing that even though I've lived in the city of Thornton before it was ever the city of Thornton, you know, but it was hard to go from being a farm community and just being out there to ourselves to a big city. You know, this is a big city to me.
Yeah.
You know?
Do you feel like it happened like pretty quick?
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, not like overnight, but over 2 nights.
Yeah.
You know, it just, and it was just, like I say, kind of like a bull in a china closet. Boy, we're clear out to 168th Avenue, you know? And if they do that, I just hate to see them take all the farms away. Yeah, and they're gonna build the houses, but you still can't afford to buy a house. That's not the city of Thornton's fault. That's not what I'm saying there, but, you know, goodness sakes, we just keep building and building and building and building on top of each other, you know? And it would, you know,
You're
just
so close together, you
Yeah.
can stand in your bathroom and shake your neighbor's hand.
Yeah.
Good morning.
Yeah. Well, and I always worry about, do we have the resources for the fire department and the police department and so on like that? If something happens, you know, can you get to a fire? Of course, knock on wood, seemingly my son tells me, he's a fireman, we don't have fires anymore, Mom, we just have drunk drivers. You know, but those are the things too that and the kids, I worry about the kids. You know, so I know that the Chris from the rec department, you know, he said that they're opening up the $50 for the summer so the kids can go and have something to do, but they've got to be, I think, 8 or above. That's a great deal. This new city, or this new rec center that they're going to open and so on. You know, I see that they're really trying hard to do a lot of things, but I just learned today we spent $5 million to make different signs, you know, for this city.
Wow.
But, you know, we have, you know, we all have our pros and cons about that, but let's talk. Before we do something, can we just ask, hey, what do you think about this? And I see more and more things coming over my email about them wanting to have your input on, you know, different things that they're doing. What a novel idea. Where was this 25, 30, 40, 50 years ago? You know, how much simpler this all could have been. And maybe it wouldn't have changed, but at least I had my ability to put my 2 cents in, you know? And that's why I say, I don't want to see anything else torn down in Eastlake because it is historic. You know, the house that I own there in Eastlake and the house that my brother lives in, my dad built that house in 1950. So for it to be scraped off to put an office building on, or you know, another building, and I think that's really what Carlson's wanted to do. They bought the property from my brother, and they were supposed to close next month, and they come over and said we can't afford to buy it. So they backed out of the deal, which did not bother my brother. But our big fear was that they would maybe scrape it off. Mine too. I'm the only one with any amount of dirt left. I've still got 5 lots. And so, but they don't, you know, they
Do
don't.
you get approached for development
Oh,
frequently?
yeah, crying out
You probably get texts all the time.
Yeah. I just throw it in the trash, you know. You know, and the thing is that even if I sell it, then I either have to do an exchange, so I've got to go clear to Kansas to do something. Because we have grown so big. And I'm not just Thornton, look at Aurora.
No, it's
You know,
everywhere around here.
It is. Denver's boxed in. They
That's
can't
just
do
too
anything. But look at Aurora, and they can. And then they built the airport clear out there, and people will build right at the airport and then complain about it. That's why they moved it out of Denver. You know. So, like I say, I would like to see I think somebody had mentioned. I think we had talked about it in the meetings. See what we can't do to kind of the old original Thornton, as I told you on the light rail, they call that the original Thornton stop, is that I'd like to try and see if we can't get this blight area kind of cleaned up. Well, just like the shopping center. Finally, I mean, how many years have they worked on that to get that cleaned up. Hopefully they'll put something in, even if it's just stores on the bottom. I think Westminster has stores on the bottom and then apartments, and gosh, but there's, I guess there's a Walmart down there though, a grocery store, but you've got to go clear to 104th to get to King Soopers, or I guess there's a Safeway.
There's the Mexican grocery store as well.
Yeah.
Right across there, which
Yeah, that's
has pretty good deals if you like tacos and such, but I've
I
never
love
gone in there for
tacos.
anything but food
Oh, yeah, well.
to go. So.
Like I said, well, and I think these are things that we need to think about. What is going to be the long term?
Yeah.
Let's put something in that's gonna, again, we don't want to tear these original Thornton houses down, but if we can put a coat of paint on it, as the old saying, put a
Right.
little lipstick on that
But
paint,
the threat from the land values in the area is real, and so
Yes.
this plan would hopefully set up some sort of framework to give the citizens the power to propose things like
Sure.
districts and stuff that could get to that. But we are getting close towards the end here, and I do appreciate your time and such, but we've chatted. I just want to give Jan one opportunity to do a final word if you'd like.
One thing I'd like to see is parents more involved with their kids. Just don't shoo them out the front door.
Send them off to the rec center for a
These
babysitter.
13 and 14-year-old kids that are getting in trouble now, where are their parents? I knew where my kids were all the time.
Yeah. Times and things have changed, and that was my biggest fear, was that they were going to come in and if you wanted to sell your house, and pretty soon today it's there and tomorrow it's gone.
Yeah.
But with you and the others that you're working with, hopefully you see the value in these old, even down here, these older homes. They were built in the late 50s as well, mid 50s. So we'd like to, and there's no other place like this,
Right.
and this is home. But we've got to try, and there's a lot of elderly people that live, this has been their entire life. They have lived there. Well, I've been in my house since 1974. I was the original owner. My ex-husband and I moved in there April 15th, 1974. I have not moved.
Wow.
And that's
112th and Colorado Boulevard.
okay. That's right.
Yeah. So, and the area has changed, there's no doubt about it. Unfortunately, and I think that's maybe a bigger problem in original Thornton, is that people have bought them, they paid for them, and now they're renting them, and we have slumlords, And so I think that's a big issue too, I know that the city council said you can only have 2 cars, you can't park everything on the lawn and here and there, but we need to do something with these things. If we want to be a big up and coming city that we want to invite people to come and live here, we have to produce something that makes them want to come,
Well, I think, in my opinion, if I'm allowed to have one, I think
Absolutely.
the agricultural properties kind of do set Thornton apart.
Yep.
There's an interesting development in Aurora that is a partnership with a developer in the city, I think, where they have an old farm property. I think it's like late 1800s. It's a little older. They're turning it into like a functioning farm. They're gonna like program out of it the community to come and learn how food grows and where you all come
that'd
from.
be
They're gonna have an actual farmer on staff as well, and it's like stuff like that I think we can hopefully
Totally
start to get
agree.
people to think about. And
Well, we have the neighborhood gardens, there's one like up at the Anything.
well, I just
Library.
noticed the one here. I was going on a jog around here yesterday. I noticed that there's one in original Thornton. I'm wondering how old is that one? It's got to be here from
And
the original subdivision,
that would give, again, Jan says we'd like to see the kids, that would give the kids something to do. The kids are
Oh, yeah,
just,
my neighbors, their kids love just talking
Oh,
about
absolutely.
our garden with us.
Dirt.
They love it.
yeah. But, we used to play in the dirt all the time,
Yeah, all right. I did too.
So, like I say, we need, I know we need to grow, but we need to have what started Thornton, which was it was a farming community. It was quote unquote a bedroom community, and everybody got up and went to work and came home, but everybody knew each other. But you could get in the car and drive 5 minutes and you're out in the middle of nowhere, you know? And you saw all the farms and the cows and beautiful crops and flowers and so on like that. That's what I would like to see, you know? Don't, just because you bought the property, do you have to build on it? Can we not have, of course, I know that Thornton is pretty decent about open spaces, you know? But-
Yeah, better than some other cities,
Yeah.
for sure.
Yeah, so that's what I'd like to see.
I'm wondering if they still have the theater built. There used to be a Thornton 3. It was a 3-screen theater in the building with the Millers in the Thornton Shopping Center.
Was there? Yeah, I think there was. It was like in the back, I think it was.
They've probably torn that out, but it's like that would be a cool thing to have in it again.
Yeah, and the drive-in.
Yeah.
And the drive-in, the North
Yeah.
Star drive-in.
Yeah,
So
the
they
North Star
one
was a
drive
great
in,
place.
Gator left, and that's when in Commerce City.
88th, yeah, and she was gonna sell it, but then Commerce City made her mad, so she's opening up for another year. There you go again, her mom and dad owned it, she took it over. It's a lot of work,
It is.
you know, and the insurance, I think a big thing is the insurances, you know, the liability is such a great
If
thing.
she makes the city mad enough, they might try to make it historic.
Oh, yeah, well, they'll build some kind of a facility where they, you know, a warehouse or something.
Yeah.
That's what,
We
you
need
know.
more of those.
Well, look at up Washington Street. I mean,
Yeah.
that was all farmland and now it's all,
Giant land.
even over on Lafayette, by the bus garage and the infrastructure. Gosh, that was all farmland. I know, and I understand that they can't buy this and just leave it alone. They've got to get something out of it. But, you know, I still say with the builders, you got to put a little pressure on them to do something. You know, you sell them the property, they get the permits, they build the houses, and then they walk away. And the city has to take care of it. I don't think that that's right either, you know. And we've got to build schools and so on and so on. We don't have enough schools, you know. And kids are walking to school. Scares me to death that the kids are walking to school, you know. There's a lot of perverts out there, unfortunately. I'm sorry, you know. But all we can do is work together and hope for the best.
One thing about living in the country, you have to take the school bus.
Yes, you did. Yes, you did. And you didn't worry about walking up and down the gravel road either.
No.
Because if somebody came by, you knew who they were, but you were always told you don't take a ride from a stranger. We never met a stranger, you know.
Yeah, it's so odd to think about such a big landscape and knowing everybody on it still.
Oh, absolutely.
Because we don't
Everybody.
even know our neighbors that
Yeah.
live 2 houses away.
I think a good portion of that was because everybody went to church. You know, nobody goes to, that's, you know, and we had potlucks at church and like I say, we had weddings and funerals and different things like baptisms, you know, and I think that that's a big thing. You knew people because they might have lived like Jan's folks. You might live 2 or 3 miles out of town, but you knew that Joan and Ione would be there to sing at a church on Sunday. But everybody knew what was going on, you know? Oh, and did the women wear hats? Oh my goodness sakes. Awful fancy
Years
hats.
ago, they used to have a turkey dinner at Eastlake. They would serve 500 people.
Yep.
Wow.
Yeah.
Did that many people come to events at the church now?
To that, well, they don't have it anymore because
Oh, they don't.
nobody knows how.
Nobody goes to
anymore.
church much there. Yeah. Yeah, nobody knows how to cook
I
it.
made a turkey or two. I'll give it a shot.
But once in a while, we'll meet an older person that used to come and they ask, that's the first thing they ask, do you still have the turkey dinner? No.
We did corned beef and cabbage too, and it went over pretty well.
Yeah.
We used to have a spot out at the fair it was a
Craft show.
craft show at the Adams County Fairgrounds, and they made baked apples, and everybody made something to sell, and the money went back to the church, but they don't do that anymore either, you know. Things went by the wayside. I think, did your mom belong to the Happy Hour Club? Yes, my mom did too. They took turns, ladies. It was kind of a ladies group. They got together once a month or so at somebody's house, and I remember one time I didn't vacuum the carpet. Oh, did I catch hell for that? My mom said, I was so embarrassed. I said, for what? She said, well, you know, the ladies came and we had happy hour club here today, and the carpet wasn't vacuumed.
Was this like an informal, like kind of trade-off?
Yeah, they would go to different
It was just,
Yeah.
it was
a bunch
just,
of women got together,
yeah,
play cards or whatever.
yeah, gossip.
Yeah.
What was the card game you all played?
I think pinochle. mostly.
Pinochle or bridge, one of the, no, I don't think they play.
Did anybody play euchre? You all know-
No, nobody knows about
Nobody knows
euchre unless you're from
Okay.
Iowa, so, you know.
Or Illinois, my mom plays euchre.
Yeah. When I worked for Cross Cartage out of Carroll, Iowa, the guys taught me how to play euchre.
Of course, in that time, our mothers didn't work inside the home. Most of us
Yeah.
didn't.
Yeah,
They were
different
too
dynamic.
Mhm.
They were too busy keeping up with everything they had to do.
Dads went
Yeah.
off to work and mom stayed home with the kids,
Yeah.
sent them to school. And then found things for them to do when they got home from school, like vacuum the carpet. Oh, we used to roller skate. We used to go over to Skate City. Well, there was a roller skate rink. As a matter of fact, it's still there. Wagon Wheels over on Old Brighton Road.
Yeah, I've seen that. My sister's gone to it a few times actually.
Yeah. Oh, it's so much fun.
I was invited but couldn't go, but yeah, I
Oh,
was
the kids
surprised.
have a good time.
Yeah.
It used to have a big, in the middle of the floor, the wood got wet. So they just skated around it. But one of my grandkids, a friend of theirs, had a birthday party over there, and we went, and they fixed the floor. But we used to go down to Skate Cities over here. What was down? There was one at 84th and Huron, a skating rink, a roller skating rink. But I didn't, like I say, I didn't like to roller skate, but I liked to ice skate.
We used to ice skate all the time.
Yeah.
Well, this has been a great discussion. I think we've learned a lot.
Yeah, I really I have a bad habit of just continuing to talk, so
Well, that's okay.
thank you.
Well, we'll see if we can't, because you know that I'll see if I can't get a hold of Dean and his sister-in-law and his brother, especially because Karen is the Hink House from the dairy.
Yeah, that'd
So
be
you
great.
could learn some things from there. And then Stonehawkers, you know, I'll see if I can, well, we can get a hold of Rose.
I had one name, and because I remember I gave you my contact list. I think, or maybe that was actually somebody else. I don't know. I've had like 30 or so of these in a year, so it's hard to remember them all. But
Yeah.
I know I think I had your contact. I had some trouble. So anything you're willing to do, I will accept.
Sure, absolutely. Do you still have your list?
Yeah, I can send it to you again and copy it in email.
Send it to me. And I might have, because I don't think I've thrown anything away still. But I'll see. Like I say, I just talked to Dean about it this morning, and see who else we can think of. Sofals, they farmed. They were up there. There was Sofals and Stonehawkers, and
Just let me put it this way. The original Thornton group, we got a lot of that. So anybody that's more in your world is who we.
well, yes.
And you don't have to think of it right now. You can certainly.
Well, no, I'm just thinking about the dairy. Who else?
Because I'm sure I'll want to follow up with a couple questions later. So once you think of more people as well, we can train them.
Okay, that Lopos.
Well, I don't know, but Mary, Joe wasn't around, but Mary was, because her family was down on, she was born and raised down on those truck farms down at Welby.
She lives in Brighton now. But
Yeah, she lives in Brighton now. I don't know.
She owned that house right there on the corner.
But Spallinger C lived there first.
Yeah.
That's who they bought it from. I don't know, we'll have to think.
All right.
No, we'll go
You
home
know
and
where to
think.
find me.
Yes, I do know where.
Top of the hill, or
She
Yeah.
was busy. She only had 11 kids.
Oh, yeah.
Sure, I took your visit.
Yeah, I lived in that house. Well, but in my little house, Dorothy Squirrel, they had 7 in a 950 square foot house. Not me.
I had to share a room with my brother for a few years, and I thought that was bad.
Yes, yes.
They must have stacked them on top of each other.
Yeah.
Bunk beds on bunk beds, you
Because that's
know.
not a very big house.
No,
Mine
not
is
for that many kids. That's a
950
lot.
square feet is what the house is, and I think they slept in baskets or in the bathtub or something, you know?
Well, thank you so much.
I like